We got this from the post-millennial breaking New York Times report. Says Biden is considering bowing out of the race. White House claims the story is false. I don't believe them. I think they have to say that because Biden's got a lot of donors who have already put up money. But I think behind the scenes, they know what the plan is. The plan is an open convention. Biden might, there's rumors actually going around right now on X, Biden might resign. And these are Beltway people. I'll pull up the tweet in a second saying he's actually planning to resign the presidency in a week. That seems a bit bold. So I don't know that I believe that would happen.
Who said that?
Tom Fitton tweeted that. We'll pull that one up next, though. But for now, we'll get through this. Biden reportedly told an ally that he may not be able to salvage his campaign if he is unable to convince the public in the coming days that he is still able to do the job. The ally stressed that Biden is still in the fight for re-election, but understands that his next few appearances will be critical. One of those interviews will take place with George Stephanopoulos of ABC News on Friday, and it's going to be an edited interview, probably.
Yeah, it's not live, they've already said.
Yep, heavily edited. And keep an eye on the clock behind Joe Biden's head because it's going to be bouncing around like crazy. You know?
Will it be between 10 and 4 in that time frame? So it will be 10 in the morning to 4 p.m.
Watch the sun coming in through the window. Well, if it's going to be critical, I guarantee he's not rolling a 20. He's going to roll a 1.
The White House has said, no, everything's fine. He's running, and that they're planning to bring him out in front of people more. And I almost wonder, I don't think you understand what the problem is. But it's almost impossible, right? Because if he stays in the shadows and doesn't talk to anybody, then we all kind of know what's going on. And if he's in front of people, they run the risks of gaffe after gaffe after gaffe. I was listening to this interview with I think his name's Jim Zogby. He's involved with the DNC. He's been there for 30 years, and he was presenting a path forward for a Joe Biden-less election. And one of the things he said was from now on out, the whole media is just going to point out every single time he stumbles, every time he breathes heavily, every time he walks weirdly. And it makes me want to be like, I know we've already been talking about it for a year. It's almost amazing how much of a shock all of this is to a lot of Democrats.
Well, the White House damage control is late. I mean, they tried to do some saving grace right after the debate. They went to that Waffle House impromptu. Jill Biden gave that really condescending, you did so well. And Joe stood there on stage. But they needed to roll him out Friday, Saturday, over the weekend. Instead, they hit him again. They went back to Camp David. So
they did the one rally in North Carolina, but even then, it wasn't enough.
It's way too late. It's way too late. This narrative is now set in stone, and they're not going to change the media narrative just because they want to. They're going to try their best. They're going to find something to indict Trump on. They're hoping this hurricane in the Pacific and the Atlantic hits Texas directly, and it becomes a story. They need something to change their narrative, but they are incapable right now.
They're grasping at straws. Yeah. What do you think of this idea, though, that it's Biden saying, oh, I think I might need to drop out?
No way in hell.
I don't think it's Biden at all. I think Biden and also the Biden family are all, they are prepared to run until they absolutely cannot, and they don't think it's off the table. It's interesting because, again, going back to this interview I was listening to with Jim Zogby, he was saying, Biden could pass the baton and he could go out with this dignified, ultimate. I'm hearing a couple different Democrats say this thing of in service to the nation, putting aside his ambition and letting someone else step in or whatever. And I just don't think that they have understood the characters involved in this. It doesn't seem like Biden.
And if you look at electoral politics, elected officials, right and left, but particularly on the left, they don't give up power easily. Look at someone like Ted Kennedy. Look at Robert Byrd, right? Look at Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Look at Dianne Feinstein. Just a couple months ago, her staff was voting on her behalf. If you are in this position for 30, 40, 50 years, you don't give it up because it's not part of your DNA. Secondly, Joe Biden's entire personality is created on the fact that he's wanted to be president. All the lies that we make fun of him on, I got arrested for protesting Nelson Mandela's occupation, right? I brokered peace agreements with Golda Meir back in all these things that people are like, what the hell? How could you lie like that? This is all to create this image that I am presidential. Even at 27 years old, I was brokering peace accords with Golda Meir. That's how great I am. He has wanted to be president for forever, as most senators do. He's always wanted to be president. He finally got it. He may not be lucid. and he does not know what's happening in the country, but he does know he is president, and that is all he has wanted. So there is no way in hell Joe Biden is going to step down. They can 25th Amendment out, right? The way they got rid of Nixon is they said, we're going to impeach you if you don't step aside, right? They can threaten him in that way, but he will not voluntarily step aside. It's incapable of Joe Biden, because this is the only thing he has wanted his whole life. He will never step aside.
Yeah, I think his ego's too intertwined with this. And when we get reports like this, I almost think it's people on staff who are saying, we've been trying to tell him that he must step aside, but, it's not going well or whatever. I mean, it just does not seem like a path that Joe Biden will voluntarily pick. And I don't think he cares about, what is good for the party or what's good down ticket. He only cares about, getting as much time in the White House as humanly possible.
But you're mentioning, Nixon. Is the deep state going to let him just sit there and occupy the space they're trying to take?
Well, as they did with Nixon, they will go to him and say, Mr. President, if you don't resign, we're going to have to do something like the 25th Amendment, right? If you don't resign, we are going to take the necessary steps that will put you in such an awkward position. So this is the best way to do it. So they may force him to resign, but voluntarily, the sense of magnanimity or love of the country that he realizes, my diminished capacity is great.
That's why I do
he's not
think
capable of doing it.
That's why I do think he's going to step down. I mean, you look at what Tucker Carlson's saying. There's too many big donors. I think Reed Hastings recently was like, get out.
Yeah.
And so the people who are funding the party are saying no more. And Biden's saying, yes, I won't. I'm staying.
I don't think he cares.
Yeah.
He's president.
I kind of wonder if we're going to get that Gavin Newsom moment where he grasps his heart.
I think it's going to be Obama that runs out there and saves him. Barack. You've been.
I feel like Obama's like, well, you had a good run. We'll just
Why
see what
Barack?
happens.
Just so his wife can become president.
Well, then Michelle would do it.
Well, it'll be Barack because he's the male hero archetype everyone loves, and then he'll bring the Obama name back into the spotlight, and then Michelle will step out.
Now, what's going to happen
can't
is
run again.
Joe's going to grasp his chest and go on stage and fall over. And Michelle's going to run out, rip off her high heels, full sprint, and lift him up with one arm and carry him to safety.
And feminist crowds everywhere go wild.
No power.
I kind of agree with you guys, both of you, actually. I don't think he'll step aside. I think he'll be pushed aside. And it's a little bit semantic at that point, but I think he's going to be incited to get out of the way by probably this.
I got an idea. Democrats, hear me out. Maybe we accuse Joe Biden of working for Vladimir Putin. That's potentially a way to get rid of him, and then you can impeach him over what he did in Ukraine.
I mean, how about the LNG pause that has made Vladimir Putin incredibly rich, and he used all that money to start a war, to fund his army and make further incursions into Ukraine.
LNG, liquid natural gas?
Liquid natural gas, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things that Biden has done that has made Putin rich and that has made Iran rich, and both of those countries, when they have a lot of money, now we're in the energy space, what do when they have a lot of money? They build schools for girls.
Look.
Right? No, they don't. They go to war. They build armies.
I just gotta say, we must protect Biden with every ounce of strength we have. He is sharp as he's ever been. He is witty. He is there, and he won the primary. Democrats, they're conspiracy theorists with those cheap fakes. I watched the debate, and I saw a man who was with it.
And he's our commander-in-chief.
That's true. So
we got to stand by him.
I say Biden for the Democratic Party.
Amen.
Yeah, we saw a very authentic Biden at the debate, and I think we should value that as a country. I'm with Corinne Jean-Pierre on this one. I mean, how dare anyone imply that he should step aside, that they wouldn't be in
years.
service?
Exactly.
I know there's a lot of fog of war over in the Ukraine eastern border there, but have the Russians captured any of the equipment we've sent over there? Because that's traitorous. If Biden sent artillery over there, now Putin has it. I mean, that's just another feather in his cap.
I mean, I wonder if you could track some of the equipment that we left in Afghanistan that has made its way up, and is being used. I don't know. But going on what you said, Anna Claire, now we need those platitudes that politicians always use. Like, look, this isn't the time for partisan politics. We need to come together as a country. We need to stand with our commander-in-chief, and we do. We need to rally around Joe Biden and say, this is our president, right? He's my president too, and we need to support support him to carry out his constitutional duty and run for re-election. He presented himself in dozens of primaries as the candidate for 2024. If the party that tells us that Trump is a threat to democracy cannot respect the democracy of their own constituents in those primaries, they didn't vote for Gavin Newsom. They wouldn't even let Bobby Kennedy Jr. on the ticket. Right, they made him change parties. So
and they're still trying to get him off the ticket.
Yeah,
and this I think makes the most sense. One of our callers last night mentioned this. Everything lines up. Why didn't they poll Biden months ago? Because RFK would have taken the Democratic nomination, and they would have had a Bernie Sanders situation.
Yeah.
So they needed to shut down the primaries first, then do an open convention and swap out Joe Biden. Otherwise, RFK takes it.
And this was what Dean Phillips, who was running as a Democrat against Biden in the primary, this was one of his talking points, was he's gone a little too far left, a little too aggressively without the consent and the input of the American people. And he's too old for the job, and we need young blood. And Dean Phillips, so much so that he basically had to give up his congressional seat. He's not running for re-election. He's independently wealthy, so I don't think he's worried about his future. But Dean Phillips stood up and was like, this is why I'm running for president. I knew these things. Where's Dean Phillips, right? How come no one on MSNBC has had Dean Phillips on their program? How come CNN hasn't said, you know what, Dean Phillips, 6 months ago, we dismissed you as a threat to the party. You were right. We were wrong. How come none of them have to eat crow right now?
We should have him on here. This is a good time to get a Democratic senator or a
I'd love to have Dean Phillips on because, again, he announced his campaign and then stood by it. He was like, I am running as a Democrat, even when RFK shifted parties. Now, arguably, RFK has now shifted to his tone. He's saying, oh, I'm running to unite everybody or whatever. But with Dean Phillips, I think you're absolutely right. Where is he? Why is nobody talking to him? And I think in part it's because no one wants to look at Dean Phillips and say, you actually had really good points and we just made fun of you until you basically had to leave, and now we've really created an issue. I mean, even when they talk about potential names, that his name doesn't get thrown around, even though he was willing to say something.
Was willing to throw his hat in the ring.
And to be fair, part of it is people launch presidential campaigns to raise their profile, you know? But Kamala Harris is deeply unpopular. So yes, she is becoming this front and center name, and people are starting to say, "Oh, well, yes, I would support her." The Democratic senator from South Carolina said that, but it's not their first choice, right? If Joe Biden had said, "I'm not going to run again," and she had announced she was running, I don't actually think she would necessarily win the Democratic primary on her own.
No.
And that's not good for the voter base.
She didn't in 2019 when she was running pre-COVID, when everyone was running for the presidency, for the Democrat ticket. She didn't even win California. She dropped out before the California primary because she was going to get crushed in her own state. One last comment on Dean Phillips. And again, we would probably disagree on everything in terms of policy and politics. He is still very much a committed Democrat and probably a fairly left Democrat. But one of the things I did like about him, which I thought showed character, was he said once at a rally, I went to a Trump rally on my own and I just walked around the crowd. He's like, they're really nice people. Like, we have to stop demonizing them as this awful group of, like, they're really great. They love the country. They were diverse. They were friendly. And I thought, boy, oh boy, Dean Phillips, I disagree with you on a lot of stuff, but the fact that you were willing to say that, because look at the way Kamala will talk about the MAGA extremists who have hijacked the court, right? So I like Dean Phillips for that reason.
Thanks for watching this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to check out the live show Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. on this channel. Subscribe and we'll see you all there.